Hey friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn, and a couple of things I want to accomplish in this video. Firstly, I want to share with you my new printable. It is Steampunk Gears. I'm going to show you a couple few different printables that are part of this collection, but not the full collection, so you'll have to go to the website and check out the rest. And more importantly, I want to share with you some really good news, and that is that Koala brand paper, which if you've been watching me ever since I've been putting out my easy postage printables, you know that this is one of the papers that I highly recommend. They're double-sided matte photo paper. I recommend them so much that when you go to any of my easy postage printable listings and you go to buy it, because I'm asked a lot, I list 2 papers in every single listing on every single easy postage printable. The first is Epson Premium Presentation Paper Matte, and the second is Koala double-sided matte photo paper. And here's the big difference between them. There's 2, and if you've seen my previous video on tips and tricks for printing digital papers, you'll already know this. I have the EcoTank, I think it's the ET2803, and my top recommendation if you're looking to get the most out of your printer, the number one recommendation I have is to, whatever brand printer it is, go find their premium paper. And because I have an Epson printer, this is where I landed, their premium presentation paper in matte. Once I saw the quality that was possible with this paper, and that's an example, this is an example of Epson premium presentation paper. So now I kind of know what is my printer capable of. Then I shopped around, I tested a little bit, and I found Koala paper is pretty much almost identical in quality. And there's just one notable difference, and that is one happens to be the Koala paper is more of a cool white as a base, whereas the Epson paper is more of a warm white as a base. But otherwise, when you look at, I keep switching them. This is Koala, this is the Epson paper. And that's how I can tell the difference, is because the Epson paper has a more warm white and the Koala paper has a more cool white. Otherwise, if you look at the quality of the print, the color, the depth of color, the detailing, it's all pretty much top-notch quality. But here's the difference. This paper costs half as much. In actuality, the price is the same, but you get 100 sheets compared to 50 sheets. And a lot of times, what might make the Epson paper a little bit more affordable is that tends to go on sale a little bit more often than what I've seen the Koala papers, at least on Amazon. But I have some really fantastic news for you, because Koala reached out to me. They asked me if I was interested in receiving some product from them, sharing my experience with you, and they offered me the opportunity to extend to you a discount so that you can buy Koala papers directly from their website and get a 12% discount with my code. I've started to leave that in the product listings for all of my easy postage printables, and I've started to list it in my video descriptions as well. That way, whenever you need to restock on some papers, you have links and you have the code in as many places as I can think to put them that you might think to look. So go to any more recent, I should say, easy postage printable listing, and we'll say Steampunk Gears and and after. And again, any of my more recent YouTube videos, and you'll find it there. So I'm really excited because not only are you going to be able to find even more options of different photo papers on the website, the Koala website directly. But what I've noticed is that it actually is a lower price than what is listed on Amazon. And that kind of makes sense because a lot of times if you are retailing on Amazon, especially if you want to, I don't know how many people know this, but if you want to have your product qualify for Prime shipping, you basically have to send enough volume of product to the Amazon warehouse, and Amazon does the fulfillment. That's how Amazon can really guarantee that 2-day shipping, and then they take ownership of the fact that if it doesn't hit 2-day shipping or whatever, they deal with that. But that's how they can kind of ensure the quality of that Prime service, because that's what we're paying for when we pay for Prime. A lot of us enjoy the free 2-day shipping. And so because of that, you, as a seller on Amazon, you lose a little bit of money to Amazon because they charge you, the seller, for providing that service. They're not going to provide that for free. So a lot of times retailers will mark up an item when they sell it on Amazon versus when they sell it on their own website. So if you go to shop at the Koala website, you're going to naturally see their everyday price for the same papers be a little bit less. That's what I've noticed in my experience than what is listed on Amazon. And then on top of that, you can use my coupon code and get another 12% off. So that's pretty fabulous. Now, because I'm already familiar with this particular paper, Koala asked me what would I like for them to send to me. And I made a couple of requests because I was curious about it myself when I looked at their website. And so a couple things jumped out at me for what I wanted to try. So the first thing that I wanted to try was this same paper, but in 66 pound. So this being 48-pound paper, it's nice, but it's a little bit thinner than even layering weight cardstock, and it's a little bit thinner than what I think standard pattern paper typically is. And so I was really curious to actually, it's the exact same double-sided matte photo paper, but instead of 48-pound, I asked for the 66-pound because I wanted to see, how much of a difference is there in paper weight. Can I feel the difference between 66 and 48? So different papers, but what I want to illustrate here is just the paper weight. So if I flick this, that's how that sounds. This is kind of, how floppy it is. So if I just hold it, it sort of bends, flops over. That's the 48-pound. This is the thicker 66-pound. So you can see it's not flopping over when I hold it at the edge. See how this kind of has a bend to it? And then let me do the flick test. So it is noticeably different. And if I had to guess, even though this is it says it's 66 pound, it does feel a little bit heavier weight than my solid color cardstock. Like Recollections cardstock is typically 65 pound, and I feel this is heavier than that. So it's a really nice, this is a very nice quality cardstock. I like it being a little bit thicker. And I think in large part, one of the considerations for whether you want something as thick as this, or if the 48-pound is right for you, is, how many layers are you adding? Because if you're just going to have the one layer and then, nothing below it, maybe just your card base, and then, maybe a focal image on top, then you might not actually you might prefer something like the 66 pound, but if you're going to do a lot of layers, I almost feel like 66 might be overkill. Like this might be a little bit too thick if you're going to have a lot of mats and layers either on top of or below. So normally this is the Easy Guide version or printable that's in the collection. And normally what I would do is I would have the Easy Grid portion here, but then I would have my card base, one layer of maybe a solid color cardstock, then this layer, and then a couple more layers on top of it even. So then you're getting to really have like 3-4 layers in some parts, and that could make for a pretty heavy card that might take you over the 1 ounce mark, which in the US would mean that you would have to add extra postage. So that's something to consider. So that was interesting just to see, because I was just out of curiosity. I noticed on their website that they do have the same double-sided matte photo paper in a heavier weight. And I wanted to see for myself what that felt like. And in GSM, it's a difference between 250 GSM, that's 66 pound cover weight, versus 180 GSM. And just so that you know, on the Koala website, this retails for $14.99. I think usually on Amazon I see it for $16.99, somewhere thereabouts. So that's the matte photo paper, which I'm an absolute big fan of. But I was also really curious about this semi-gloss. I don't think I would ever really turn to a glossy photo paper, especially for card making, but I was a little bit curious about semi-gloss because I feel like sometimes the pattern papers that we typically buy from our favorite craft companies, I kind of feel like they have a little bit of a shine to it, that they might be a little bit of a semi-gloss. And so when I saw that this was an option at Koala, I wanted to check it out for myself to see, what is the difference between their semi-gloss and matte. It just so happened that what they had in stock was 8.5 by 14. So this is larger than the standard 8.5 by 11. But what I'm really looking for is just the difference in shine. So you can kind of see as I bend this in the light, there is a shine to it as compared to when you hold up the matte. There's absolutely no shine. Now, there is a little bit of a difference in color. I think it's a little bit more noticeable on this end, where I kind of feel like there's some depth of color that's missing on the semi-gloss version, because if you look at this, you can see there's some really very rich dark areas. This looks a little bit washed out to me. Particularly this gear here looks kind of washed out, and in these areas it looks very washed out. And here's the thing, I haven't written off this semi-gloss paper as something that I might like to craft with, because I do like that finish to it. It does remind me a lot of the the professionally printed papers, like pattern paper packs that we buy. But I will say that what I did was I chose a different printer setting than what I normally use to print my Koala, print onto Koala, because when I print onto the Koala paper, and I have another video on this, and you can see all the printer settings and everything. I choose, the absolute best quality and all of that jazz. But more importantly, for the paper type, I actually choose plain paper for the matte photo. Because usually with a semi-gloss, because of whatever that coating is that gives it that gloss, a lot of times your printer needs to actually deposit the ink a little bit differently, so that it needs to run through the rollers a little bit more, usually more slowly, so that it's not smearing, and there's enough time for the ink to actually dry, as it's going through the process. Because on a glossy surface, it might be a little bit more slick, so the ink might need a little bit more time before it's dry and it won't smear or smudge. But that might mean also that it deposits perhaps less ink, as a result, because if you put down a lot of ink onto a slick surface, it's going to take longer to dry, right? So one of the things that I might look into doing is maybe tweaking the printer settings a little bit to see if I can get this to really look like this, because I love this, and I didn't really have to do a lot of color adjustments or anything to get it to look as vibrant as it does. But if you look at even some of the color, it has a very pinkish hue to it. So I feel like if I didn't see a side by side, the pinkish hue I would still pick up on. I don't know that I would necessarily notice the fact that this is a little bit washed out. Maybe I would have just considered that a possibility that it's designed to look that way. But the fact that overall there's a little bit of a pinkish tint to a lot of these, that I feel like is noticeable and looks a little bit, off. So I like the finish. I like the end result of how of the shine of it. I know not everybody does, but I kind of like it, but I'm not a big fan of this pinkish here. And having seen what my printer can do with this exact pattern, I'm going to play around with some settings to see if I can get something that has the same color depth and also the same color interpretation as printing on the matte. And what I actually might do is, instead of choosing to print on a photo paper, maybe I will just print on plain paper and see if it prints the exact same quality and no smears, no smudges and whatnot. Maybe that's the better place to start. I just assumed that I should be choosing a photo paper, but I might have made the wrong assumption. And speaking of that, the next type of paper that I chose to try is this one, which I thought was really super, as the name would suggest, ultra premium. This harkens back to when I used to take photos with my camera, like an actual film camera, and get the film developed and send it to a photo lab. And there was a summer I actually worked in a photo lab developing other people's photos. And a nice perk of that was that I could develop my own photos too. That's why I got the job. So I was very curious about this because every time I went to go get my photos printed, I always chose the satin finish because I just love how it looks. And it's a little bit, what I remembered it looking like was a little bit like a semi-gloss. And but it has that sort of, I don't want to say a crystallized feel to it, but it almost has a little bit of a texture to it that just makes it look very classy, luxurious, and it just catches the light in a really nice way. So I was very eager to try that out, and this is what that looks like. And again, when I went to choose the type of printer I was printing on, I chose, I think the closest thing, I think there was an ultra premium photo paper option, and that's what I chose. Interestingly, color-wise, it's, I think it's got some of the same depth as this one. You can see more, it doesn't look quite as washed out as this one does. So I think in terms of overall color depth, it's there, like the range. It doesn't look quite as sharp to me as this one. But I think that's sort of by design with photo paper, because if you are taking photos of people in particular, you probably want them to look a little bit softer, I feel, than have like a real sharpness to them. And but interestingly, the color though, it's also a little bit off, a little bit different. I like this, where this very vintagey, old, sort of antique aged postage stamp. It just looks like it's white. Maybe it started off as white and it's aged, and so now it's like this very vintagey color. Whereas these both have just a tint of something. This one has a very reddish tint to it. This one has a tint of a little bit red, a little bit something else. I'm not too sure. But these images down here, I feel, are a little bit darker than these the matte photo printed. So at the moment, the matte photo paper is still my favorite. But this has such a really like a very luxe kind of feel to it. It's very luxurious. It's got some really subtle shine to it, and it does have that very almost not pearlescent, but that very satin finish to it, which you kind of find sometimes you can really see it here, like how it's not super smooth. It's got that satin finish to it that's really, really awesome. It's like a specialty paper. So I really like the finish of this a lot. I don't know that I would necessarily use it in paper crafting, but when I do mini albums and I print photos of, our dogs and the family and whatnot, I definitely am going to want to be printing on this, which is their ultra premium photo paper satin. This is a 72-pound cover weight, 270 GSM. So technically speaking, it's thicker than the 66-pound. But really I can't really tell the difference. And if I had to guess, I would actually guess that it's lighter weight than the 66-pound, to be honest. And it does seem like it still feels like a little bit more floppy. But this 66-pound, I feel like this is closer to 100-pound cover weight. I mean, it's really nice, thick stuff. So if that's what you're looking for, if that's what you need, like a beautifully printed but a thicker cardstock, this 66-pound really is outstanding. The semi-gloss paper, I think I would use this in paper crafting. I just want to tinker with the color settings a little bit and see if I can't get, the same quality here. And the satin paper, this, it's called, I think it's called, on the website, I think it's called like RC ultra premium photo paper. It's really, really top notch, and I would definitely use this satin paper for printing actual like photos of for memory albums. I don't do scrapbooking, I do more mini albums, and so I would definitely use it for that. I don't know, it's a little bit too, I think, high end of a paper, to be honest, for card making, but maybe for special projects and cards or paper craft projects that you want to stand the test of time, I might use this for pattern papers that I use in mini albums, because often I make mini albums, I do want them to be kept and preserved and looked at, and so I could see myself using this for everything in my mini albums, whether it's printing photos or printing pattern papers to decorate it. So so that is something that's where I might use something like extra special like this ultra premium photo paper. So that's a look at a couple of different lines of papers available at Koala. There's way more than that. I didn't want to be too greedy and ask for the whole store, so I just asked for a couple few things that I knew I would be interested in using somewhere in my paper crafting, and those were the ones that I requested that they had in stock. Now, I do want to share with you some cards that feature my new collection. These two cards are actually a new recipe of mine. It's recipe number 5, fancy gatefold cards. And the only thing that makes these fancy is that instead of having your two gates line up exactly and meeting up exactly in the center, be it off, in the center or off center, they actually overlap and give you the opportunity to create a more asymmetric look to it. A little bit of a fancy border, and the way that I'm achieving a fancy border is just by using whatever shape dies that you prefer. So in this case, I'm using the little postage stamps from my Easy Wonder die number 3, and I'm collaging it right over the gate. And one of the things I think is really fun is because they overlap, I'm using one of the gates, the gate that's behind, for one element of the collage, and then the other elements are collaged but adhered to the front gate. And that way, especially in this case, I just didn't want to cover up that beautiful dress. So that way she's kind of appreciated as part of a collage, but then she's also appreciated on her own as just a beautiful portrait. And so that's one fancy gatefold. I'll have a separate video on this. Here's another take on a fancy gatefold, and it also relies on the same idea of overlapping gates. In this case, I cut an angle on both of the gates, and I did 2 collages, so you can kind of see how when the card is closed, a lot of the second collage is covered. So it just looks like there's actually 4 different items in this little collage. But really it's 2 separate collaged up images or sets of images. 3 on the front and 3 on the second gate. And then I added a bit more pattern paper. This is from the collection. This is the 3rd sheet in the collection. And so that's kind of a look at just a couple cards that I've crafted so far and a new recipe card. If you're not familiar, my recipe cards are just meant to be really easy guidelines for creating interesting cards, but creating them in a way where you can just wing it and have some fun. Once you know the general idea for how to put one of these together, you don't have to necessarily be overly precise about what the measurements are, where to cut, etc. So for example, these 2 angle cuts aren't the same between these 2 cards. And on this one, I just left it straight. On this one, I cut a bit of an angle just to create, again, another different edge when you open this, the first flap open. So look forward to that video. And if you do download my Steampunk Gears collection and you craft with it, tag me on social media at LV Handcrafted so that I can see what you've made. I also have a Facebook group that's all about Easy Wonder inspiration, and certainly the Easy Postage printables. I would love to see you post to that group as well, whether you're using the Easy Wonder dies or not. If you're crafting with these printables, definitely share it to that group, because we are all Easy Wonder fans there, and it's wonderful to see what you create with these printables and where it takes your imagination. And I always love when when folks craft with my printables and I can barely recognize what they've done with it, because they've used it in such interesting and different ways to how I dreamed or envisioned. And that's one of my favorite things about putting out collections like these, is just to see where your imagination takes it. Thanks for checking out my video today. I'm going to leave links to everything in the description box below. Don't forget that if you are looking to stock up on paper, Koala papers, I can offer you a 12% discount if you use my coupon code, which is just LV Handcrafted, and that's going to always be in the description box of my videos and as well in the listings for my easy postage printables. So big thank you to Koala for sending me these products to check out. I'm going to continue to tinker with my printer settings to see if I can get them to print exactly the way I want to see them, and I'll be back with an update if I do find the right printer settings for the semi-gloss paper and for that satin photo paper. Thanks again for checking out my video, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.